A day on, united in grief. But that wasn't the only emotion we saw and heard at today's vigil.
Our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, and before I do, please, 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 please.
The audible, visceral reaction to the Deputy Prime Minister, not the response of everyone, or even most, but still unignorable.
Shame on you! Shame on you!
Please.
Every Saturday!
Please.
We must not let them divide us.
With more details now confirmed about the attack at a synagogue on this North Manchester street on the most holy day of the year in the Jewish faith. Today, we learned the names of the two victims who were killed. Melvin Kravitz was 66 years old, described as a gentle, nice man, always with a kind word. Also, Adrian Daulby, who was 53, a down-to-earth man whose final act was to save others, his family have said. It now seems that in the chaos yesterday, he was behind the synagogue door when he was hit by a police bullet, as was one of the three people recovering from their injuries. Events the GMP chief constable called a tragic and unforeseen consequence when police fired at the attacker. As those details came through this morning, I was talking to Lord John Mann, the UK government's independent advisor on anti-Semitism. I appreciate you've only just seen the details this second as they've been released. Your thoughts?
Oh, well, that just adds further complication to an awful situation. I know the view of the Jewish community will undoubtedly be, well, hang on a minute, it's not the police who came to kill us, it's the terrorist.
Having flown back to the UK early for yesterday's Cobra meeting, today the Prime Minister was in Manchester, meeting members of the Jewish community as well as emergency responders.
I've been to the scene to pay my respects and to get a sense of what you were confronted with. I've also seen the body-worn cameras and the footage out of that. And I am absolutely clear in my mind as to the professionalism of the response, the speed of the response. This was a dreadful attack, a terrorist attack, to inflict fear, attacking Jews because they are Jews. And it's really important today that the whole country comes together, people of all faiths and no faiths, to stand in support and solidarity with our Jewish community.
Among those the PM met today was Mark Levy from the Jewish Leadership Council.
The fact that we are actively questioning what sort of future our children have in this country is something that's absolutely devastating for us.
His father was at the synagogue when yesterday's attack happened.
Obviously, with it being Yom Kippur, no one had phones on them, so there was no way of checking who was safe, who was injured. All we knew that there were fatalities and injuries. And the first time I knew my father was okay was when I saw him walking around in the street on Sky News. It subsequently transpired that he was arriving at the time of the attack. He was walking up the stairs of the synagogue, and him alongside others barricaded the door to keep the terrorists on the outside and not on the inside, and avert what would have been an even greater tragedy than the one that we have experienced.
The man who brought terror to this part of Manchester yesterday, 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami, a British citizen who moved to Manchester from Syria with his family when he was a young child. The focus today, though, from many who gathered for this vigil, was not on the actions of the attacker, but on those they grieve and those who helped.
Claire Fallon reporting there. Well, a short while ago I spoke to Alan Levy, who is chair of the trustees at the synagogue. He spoke to the attacker outside after seeing him circle the building. He told me how he ran to alert worshippers, blockading the door shut as al-Shami kept trying to force his way in.
I was outside in the grounds of the synagogue because there'd been reports of a suspicious character who was asking for directions to a place further down the road, and he never went to those directions. He actually then appeared again right in front of us where we were standing, and I spoke to him and I asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "It's a free country, I can go where I like."
How did he seem at that point? Was he agitated?
No.
Was he calm?
Yeah, he was calm. He was calm. He just said, I'm not committing any offence, I can go where I like. And then just wandered off.
And did you think he was gone?
Well, I saw him go, but I was just concerned. He just didn't look right. He had a backpack on. I was concerned about the backpack that he had on his back. And it's just very unusual for someone to start going all the way around the synagogue. He was around the back of the synagogue, he was at the side of it, he was at the front of it, as though he's casing the synagogue out. So I said to the security guard, you've got to ring in this to the CST and see if they believe the police need to come, because I think it's very suspicious. As I'm then walking away from him and just into the car park, I hears this car really revving a lot. And as I turned round, I saw it smash straight into the security guard and into the gates. And he jumped out and attacked one of the volunteer security guards, and he gets into the grounds waving this knife. So I ran through the car park and up the steps, opened the door, slammed it shut and locked it. And just as I locked it, he was at the door with this knife, and he's knifing in the door and in the pane of glass like that. And then other members of the synagogue came out, brave people, because he's shoulder barging the doors, trying to get the doors in.
I mean, in those seconds, really, those moments, what was going through your mind? I mean, it must have been utterly terrifying.
What was going through my mind is we've got to protect everybody. We've got to keep these doors closed. We've got to stop him getting through these doors. And he couldn't get through, and he went and picked up plant pots outside, and he was trying to smash them against the glass. That was when, thank God, what seemed an eternity but wasn't in reality, the armed police arrived. And they dealt with him, really.
There seems little doubt that it could have been much worse. Had people like you not alerted people in the synagogue, had you not managed to bolt that door?
Thank God that he told me what to do, and I went in and did it. And managed to save people's lives, yeah. But, we have to pay tribute to other people from the community who were inside as well, who came and helped. There was a number of them came to keep those doors closed. Because if it had got through the doors, I don't think I'd be standing here now if it had got through those doors. We're not going to be cowed by terrorists. We're not going to let terrorists like him defeat us and stop us practicing our Jewish faith. We're just not going to do it. Stand up, stand proud, we're Jewish. We won't let him beat us.
Alan Levy, we're very grateful you've spoken to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, Rabbi Daniel Walker was leading the Yom Kippur service at the synagogue when the attack happened. I spoke to him before the Jewish Sabbath began earlier this afternoon, and I asked him to explain exactly what took place.
I was in the synagogue. We were praying when I heard a very loud bang, and then members of the community ran into the main synagogue area, shouted to close the doors. And at that point then, after we closed the internal doors, I went out to the foyer. There was a member of the community who was quite badly injured in the foyer. He was one of the security team who had blocked and the terrorist and had been badly wounded in the process. And then I noticed the terrorist trying to get in, shoulder barging the doors, throwing objects at the doors, hacking with a very large knife at the doors. And all of us together in the foyer were trying to hold the doors, or successfully held the doors closed.
We know that this happened in a matter of minutes.
Yes, it didn't feel like minutes. It felt a very long time. It felt like we were holding those doors for a long time. And it felt until the wounded were helped a very long time, but it wasn't. It was literally minutes, as I now know. Time goes slower.
Tell me what has been said between the members of the community that you've been talking to just now.
Yeah, so we're all trying to give each other strength and resilience, really. We're building on our resilience, on our hope, on our on our confidence for the future, we're not going to let it beat us.
When you talk about hope and confidence, can you have either of those things right now?
I think that's what we need in a crisis. I think we need to dig deep and find those things inside ourselves. We can't allow evil to beat us, and we won't allow it to beat us.
You sound shaken still.
Indeed, yeah.
All of the people that you will be speaking to in the next days and weeks will also be shaken.
Absolutely they are, yes.
Angry?
Yeah, all of the emotions we associate with grief and with horror, yes, definitely. And it's going to be a process of healing from those feelings.
But is there anything that the wider community must do after this?
I think we all have to examine ourselves and say really where are we in terms of our relationships with our neighbours, with other communities. There has to be an end to the demonisation, certainly, of the Jewish community for its support for Israel. That has to come to an end. And yes, I believe there has to be a process of self-examination of what brought us to this place in our society.
The people must be able to separate what is happening in Israel, the actions of the government, say, with the Jewish people.
Indeed, and I think also some of the demonisation of Israel in particular has brought us to this point. Some of the horrendous accusations that have been levelled have brought us to this point.
Rabbi, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
While we've been on air, the family of Melvin Kravitz paid tribute to a kind and caring man who was killed in the attack. He was the security guard who worked at the synagogue, who courageously stopped the attacker from entering the building. They said Melvin would do anything to help anyone. He was so kind, caring, and always wanted to chat and get to know people. He was devoted to his wife and family and loved his food. Now, Jihad al-Shami was on bail for an alleged rape when he attacked the Heaton Park synagogue, but he was not on the police or security services radar as a potential terrorist. The British citizen of Syrian descent had been in the UK since he was a child. His community is now coming to terms with the fact that he became a killer. Our community's editor, Darshna Soni, reports.
Cradling a newborn baby, a 35-year-old terrorist named Jihad al-Shami, who was on bail for an alleged rape when he carried out the murderous attack at the Manchester Synagogue. We can reveal that although he wasn't on the radar of the security services and hasn't been linked to any previous terrorism investigations, he was known to the police over other criminal matters. As detectives continue their investigations into his background, they focus their searches at the perpetrator's home, less than 2 miles from the synagogue. Jihad lived in this leafy suburb with his 2 brothers, his mum and his dad.
My name is Faraj al-Shami.
Mr al-Shami worked as a trauma surgeon, spending time in various conflicts. The International Committee of the Red Cross confirmed to us he worked for them on 2 assignments in the DRC and Sudan. There's still a lot of police activity here at the family home. It's understood that the attacker's father is working abroad, and today Mr al-Shami put a statement up on social media. In it, he says, "The family in the UK and abroad strongly condemns this heinous act which targeted peaceful, innocent civilians." He says, "Our hearts and thoughts are with the victims and their families, and we pray for their strength and comfort." One of their neighbours used to be their window cleaner and told us what he knew of Jihad al-Shami.
They moved here about 20 odd years ago. Smashing lad, to talk to. He was just the same as anybody else. He didn't stand out in any way.
A man who didn't stand out in any way and wasn't particularly well known in the local Syrian community of this city, many of whom have settled here for decades.
They came as doctors like his dad.
Yasser al-Jassam has worked with local Syrian groups for over a decade. He points out that although some commentators have negatively described Jihad al-Shami as an asylum seeker, in fact it's understood he was legally brought here as a child and granted British citizenship in 2006.
The media, they're doing, unfortunately, this bad job.
Local groups have strongly condemned the attack, but Mr al-Jassam says it has raised some difficult questions about how to prevent radicalisation. Some people have suggested that the community itself hasn't done enough to stop this type of radicalisation.
They don't need to go to like a mosque or like a community center or to pick these ideas. They just pick up their phone at home and they look inside the social media. There is thousands of pages talking about these ideas, radicalism.
I know that our community is looking for two things: leadership and hope.
In the pouring rain at the site of the attack, Muslim groups came out today to show solidarity with their Jewish neighbours.
It's always sad when something like this happens in our community. I know it's such a shock for me and people I know. So I think it's important that everyone local really show up.
Every community has extremists within them, and it's an unfortunate reality. We have to come together and deal with this problem together. So every community needs to be clear about its position on extremism, needs to target extremism, and it is not necessarily just one community's job. It's a united job.
3 people are still being questioned over the attack, a woman in her 60s and 2 men in their 30s.
Well, joining me now is Imam Sabah Ahmadi, a member of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. He was born and raised in Greater Manchester. He's one of Britain's youngest imams, and he's been visiting the Jewish community in Crumpsall today. Thanks so much for joining us in terrible weather. What have you been saying to the Jewish community today in this terrible moment?
It's showing solidarity and unity with the Jewish community. Look, an innocent life is an innocent life, regardless of what faith you come from. The Holy Quran says that killing an innocent is akin to killing the whole of mankind. So it's important we stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters in faith, in unity and solidarity.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because these can be dangerous moments, can't they? Devastating for the Jewish community, but just as the Jewish community can't be responsible for what the Israeli government does, individual Muslims cannot, your community cannot be responsible for the acts of one individual, but nevertheless, these are tense times, aren't they?
It is. I think it's in times like this, regardless of your differences, we should come together. Actually, the Holy Quran teaches that if someone treats another one who is different to them with love and compassion, they become like close friends. And that teaching just shows you the importance of building bridges of love and coming together.
Are you worried, though, about how this pans out over the next weeks and months? Because we know that often terror attacks can lead to more terrible incidents. We saw after Southport the dreadful riots. Are you worried about the next few weeks and months?
After something like this, it can go two ways, either hostility and division, or as we saw after 5 or 6 years ago, the coming together of people in Manchester, the unity and the oneness of the community. So we should strive to make Manchester, as it is, a city united together, stronger together, and a city of peace.
How do you do that in a sort of specific day-to-day way?
The motto of our community is love for all, hatred for none. If we were to live and strive by that, we wouldn't be stood on the top of a hotel on a roof talking about such sad incidents. So I think it's trying to live your life based on morals and teachings that can stem from your religious upbringing and values, and to live your life understanding and respecting other people's way of life.
But a great deal has been talked about how that isn't always being done at the moment. We see a lot of anger in the country. You know, Jewish people have talked to me about how they feel demonised. We know also that Muslim people are, you know, asylum seekers, migrants, have also been demonised, and that talk, it can be dangerous, can't it?
It can, but I think it's uniting on our commonalities. We all might have different walks of life. We all might have different viewpoints in life, or come from different faiths in life, but we all share the common understanding. We all bleed red. We have more in common than not. So just because we're different or we have differences, we shouldn't target or marginalise the community because they're different to us.
Are you confident that people won't be marginalised, that people won't be targeted, though?
I can't give an answer for sure. But I think if we lead by our own example and try our best to lead with strong values and strong morals and have an understanding of the way people live, that's a step in the right direction, and we can only pray for the best.
I mean, a great deal has been said in the last 24 hours how political rhetoric needs to change. We heard that before when Joe Cox was killed, the MP. You know, what's your view about what is the tone that should be set by all politicians?
Look, as a religious leader, it's difficult for me to comment on politics. I'm not here for that. I'm here to talk about the sense of humanity and the coming together of a community, and to grieve the loss of our fellow Jewish members of the community. So that's hard to navigate as a faith leader. But when it comes to a sense of humanity, we've got to stand united together.
But we know the public debate is very often very hostile. We've seen some very ugly protests over the summer. How do you keep that dialogue positive? How do you keep people who have very, very different views making their arguments politely and calmly and not aggressively?
Well, that's the answer right there, politely and calmly. You can't fight fire with fire. Through conversation and dialogue, we can achieve peace. And we've never seen peace through violence. And that's what we can't forget.
And what about the role of social media in all of this?
Social media, I'm on there. It can be a very dangerous world. It's really important to fact check the stuff that you have, get your news from different sources, and make sure you're not caught in a cycle of misinformation, which can lead to terrible acts of violence and terror.
And I know you're here as an imam. One of the things that has been most difficult over the last 2 years has been that very divided opinion on the Gaza conflict. I mean, you must feel very strongly about that yourself.
I do. It's very worrying time. It's important we stand up for justice, for the rights of Palestinians. It's important that Palestinians call out and say what Hamas did was wrong. In the same breath, it's important Israelis call out what's happening now is completely incorrect. And actually, violence never solves problems. It's got to come through justice and peace.
So you're hopeful, you're confident?
I pray every day that we come to an agreement of peace and love.
Imam, thank you very much for talking to us this evening. Thank you. Well, that is all from us now in Manchester for the moment. Let's go over to Matt in the studio.
Thank you, Jackie. Try and stay dry. Now, Jewish communities have been urged to keep their doors and gates shut after Thursday's attack. The Community Security Trust, which works to protect British Jews, is also urging people not to congregate outside communal buildings or events. Security was already a major issue for synagogues and other Jewish venues in Britain, as our Home Affairs correspondent Simeon Brown now reports.
This is a modern monument to Jewish contribution, looking down on this major cultural centre. But although they want to put more money into art, there is one cost that keeps increasing.
But really frustratingly, because we have the word Jewish, emblazoned on our building, because we're very openly, loudly and proudly Jewish, our security costs are nearly £600,000 a year. And on top of that is the time, Last night I came back from synagogue, I came back from fasting, and straight away was on security calls with the team.
The country's biggest Jewish cultural centre was already on high alert. But after Thursday, security concerns have increased. The threat level is substantial. This means an attack is likely. A community security notice has warned Jews not to congregate outside synagogues and for gates to remain closed. This weekend, additional police will be deployed.
So we're putting more patrols out over the weekend, around 350 extra officers that we've moved around the organisation to be focused on protecting communities at synagogues like this one in South Tottenham, at schools, at other community centres and venues, to send that message of reassurance and also to protect.
This is where concern has turned now. This weekend, protests are planned against the assault on Gaza and in support of Palestine Action, the direct campaign group that was proscribed this year. The Met called the protest a challenge for resources, and the Home Secretary criticised its timing.
What I would say to people who are thinking about going on a protest today or this weekend, take a step back. Imagine that was you who's lost a loved one in such a horrible, horrifying terrorist attack. Imagine how you would feel, and then just take a step back and act with a little kindness.
There are those pushing the Home Secretary to move further against the weekend's protests and link them to violence against Jews. But planning to take part are Jewish protesters who reject this.
I'm the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, and I'm watching a genocide happen in real time. Who isn't going to be distressed about that? And it's got nothing to do with the protest. It's everything to do with what's going on in Gaza.
But after intelligence warnings of growing radicalization, for those who are targets, the threats are now reality.
Never in our lifetime has there been an attack on Jews that has led to Jews being murdered in this country because they're Jewish. And there was some kind of bubble of safety somewhere, and that's just burst. We have to not let those who hate us and those who wish to cause terror upon our community, we have to not let them win. We have to go about our lives. We have to live Jewishly. We have to go to Jewish schools, pray in Jewish synagogues, come to Jewish community centres.
Here in this major hub of Jewish life, as security increases, there is fear, but there is also defiance.
Well, earlier I spoke to Jonathan Hall, Casey, the UK's independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. I began by asking him whether he thought that pro-Palestine demonstrations should be allowed to go ahead this weekend?
I mean, the law is not very good at dealing with issues like showing respect. And I mean, you hope that in the aftermath of a terrible attack, if people are going to be upset by a march so soon after what's happened, that you wouldn't need to have a law to say, out of respect, please don't do that. There's no way of stopping the huge diversion of resources. Now, I suppose the law comes in at the point at which you could actually say for sure this is an urgent need in the wake of a terrorist attack for counter-terrorism resources, and therefore you might say in those very precise circumstances, well, we need to stop it. But the law can't get involved at a lower level, can it? It can't say it's not polite. It's against the law out of impoliteness. So if you get to that level, and I do think there is a gap, yes, the law can come in, but otherwise I don't think it can.
And Defend Our Juries, of course, is saying, hang on a minute, if you weren't arresting hundreds of our peaceful protesters, then you wouldn't need to have all these police resources at our demonstrations. You could actually send them to synagogues and schools around the country to do the protection business they're supposed to be doing.
So the prescription of Palestine action is what we're talking about, whether it actually stops anyone's freedom of expression. I mean, the view that I've taken, I've been quite open about this, is that I don't think it stops anyone's freedom to demonstrate about Gaza, that you simply can't say, I support Palestine action, which is a group which has been involved in what I certainly think to be terrorism. So I think it's inevitable the police will have to carry out the arrest. It is about excluding the oxygen of publicity, which this group certainly wants, and I don't think there's much of a choice about it.
Let's move on to the other question, which is the alleged perpetrator in this. He seems to have been acting alone.
Yeah.
You know, if he was not on anyone's watch list, if he was not on the police's sites in any shape or form, how is it possible to detect someone like that and stop them doing from what they plan to be doing before they've done it?
People tend to leave traces on the internet. So quite a lot of attack plots will be detected because someone is in a chat group talking about it. Someone may have said something. I mean, people talk about the theory of leakage. Attackers, before they carry out an attack, will leak their attack plans to someone. Someone might pick that up, a member of the public. Again, it could be online. If someone is keeping to themselves and they haven't got associates, then it is always going to be really, really hard.
And how do you decide on the sliding scale of support for Palestine, support for a Palestinian state, you know, and not outright support for Hamas, you know, where someone might slip into that gap of sympathy for the Palestinian cause, where they are moved to do something extreme and terrible?
It seems very plausible, doesn't it, given what's happening at the moment in the world, that the attack on Jews was motivated by something to do with Israel-Hamas, Israel-Gaza. I mean, we don't know, and the reason I slightly pause is the attack methodology that was used was pretty resonant of some of the attack methodologies that happened in the late 2010s, way before Gaza. So the fake suicide belt, the stabbing the vehicle, and there is this standing instruction from Islamic State, from Iran actually, to go and kill Jews in the UK and in the West.
The Israeli government, as soon as Yom Kippur was over, you know, and they could break their silence, was very clear in blaming the British government for, you know, its inability to protect Jews from rising anti-Semitism, and also blaming the recognition of the state of Palestine as a contributing factor to this lone act of terrorism. Do you think that's a fair criticism?
I'm not going to get into what the Israeli government said, whether it's to do with wider anti-Semitism, although I expect it is to do with wider anti-Semitism. But I do think having to look, why is it right that there is a part of the British population who are having to do so much to protect themselves, who in principle, if this was to carry on this way, could find themselves effectively in a gated community. I do think that requires society, and there's a limit to what the law can do here, it requires society to look at how has it happened and how can that be counteracted.
Jonathan Hall, thank you very much indeed.